Okay, and let me just switch over to the appropriate approach. Now, are you seeing my slides full screen at this point?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, Gerry, take us away.
All right, so let's go back to the first slide. Welcome everybody to, let's see that first slide. And I just want to thank all of you for being here from across the country. And thank you, Pat, for having me. And we're going to talk about 3 simple secrets to getting attorneys to notice, remember, and hire you and not at substandard fees. Next slide, please. So if that's of interest to you, please say yes in the chat box. So this is going to be somewhat of a masterclass because I'm going to show you how you can transition from struggling to get a steady flow of cases, work with high value attorneys and build your legal nurse consulting business to giving you the financial benefits that you want. Pat and I have had a lot of conversation, and let's be honest here, for some of you, it's been a struggle, and that's okay. That's part of being in business for yourself. Next slide, please. Now, Pat and I have a request, and that is that you stay with us until the end, because we've got some really juicy information that we're going to be sharing with you throughout this presentation, and we don't want to lose any of you. Next slide, please. And our other request is that you turn off all your distractions right now. We know how simple it can be to be interrupted by phone calls and email requests and text messages and so on and so forth. Next. Now, we also are going to allow you to do a Q&A with myself and or Pat at the very end. And so that's one of the reasons we want you to stay with us as well. Next slide. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but within the webinar business, you do have to have a disclaimer. So before we go any further, I'm going to be sharing some testimonials and some results. And by continuing to watch, you agree that you understand that any results shown and shared are for illustration only, and that I'm not promising any income or results, and I'm making no income claims. So if you don't agree, then stop watching now, okay? So Pat has already referenced one of our people on this call is Tina Baxter, and she had phenomenal results. And that's what happened for Tina. And we can't guarantee that it's going to happen to you as well. Now, you are here today because you feel that your business is making you feel a certain way when it comes to how's it going. You may feel excited about the income potential of making more money as a LNC in 22. Next slide, please. Or you may feel ready to say goodbye to feeling frustrated, confused, and or overwhelmed with growing your business. Because for a lot of LNCs, and Pat and I have talked about it, it's confusing for many of you in terms of what exactly should you do to have more impact, make more money, etc. Next slide. Or you may feel intrigued by the simple idea of being able to position yourself as the better choice for attorneys so that you can get a steady flow of cases and work in 2022. Next. And maybe some of you are just curious. You're curious about this whole topic of branding and not having to depend upon sending out more cold letters or making more cold calls or relying upon referrals to attract and land high value attorney clients. Because in your profession, there are some consultants who are still doing this sort of thing. And so you're going to, you'll be able to feel confident that this is not what you have to do to get clients. Next slide, please. Or you may feel happy. You feel happy when you think about your website not having to look like every other nurse consultant's website, or a resume that may read like every other legal nurse's resume. So one of the things that Pat and I have discovered is that a lot of nurse consultants are starting to present themselves the same way And here's the exciting news. You can differentiate yourself and set yourself apart. Next slide, please. So the question is for each of you, which one of these feelings is piquing your interest? Are you excited about the income potential that you could achieve? Perhaps you are ready to have steady business growth in 2022, excuse me, or maybe you're looking to simplify your flow of cases, or you're excited about the idea of not feeling invisible. And you're really excited about making a name for yourself. So you decide which one is going to really resonate with you. Next, please. Now, whatever your reasons, I want you to know that Pat and I fully support you. We are doing this webinar to support each of you in terms of achieving your goals. And you've got this. And that's one of the things for each of you is to please exhale right now. You can have the kind of LNC business you're looking for to achieve whatever your goals and ambitions are. Next slide, please. Now, I thought it would be great for those of you who are here to just learn a little bit about myself and who I am. And I'll go through these pretty quickly. I have a very popular podcast called Big Brand Formula, which you can find on most of the platform that are out there for podcasts. Next slide, please. And what I speak on, if you look at the slide on the left, is big branding. And I do a lot of teaching. The image to the right, for example, was taken in Vancouver, Canada, where I was working with a small group of business owners throughout the Vancouver area, teaching them how to create a big brand for their business. Next slide. And one of the things about a lot of my programs is that they've become very popular. This particular one, in fact, Pat, I don't think I've shared this one with you before. It's called the 12 Tenets of a Big Brand for Customers, Cash, and Continued Growth. This is on my podcast page. That's gotten a lot of acclaim from business owners internationally, as well as here in America. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. A little bit about myself. I started my business full-time in July of 1985. This is year 36. Yes, I did start my business when Jesus was still wearing sandals. Dinosaurs were roaming the earth. And there was this thing called a personal computer that just got invented. And people were like, what's a PC? And I'm very blessed. I've helped over 100,000 small businesses from 600 different industries over the last 30 plus years. And I primarily work with service-based entrepreneurs like yourselves. People who have skills, talents, abilities, and expertise to offer the world. I went to school at USC, University of Southern California. I earned 2 degrees, my bachelor's degree, my MBA degrees, cum laude from the Marshall School of Business. I majored in marketing with deep study in branding. Over the last 30 plus years, I've received all types of awards and recognition and so forth. And I was also an adjunct professor of branding, marketing, and advertising for 10 straight years at 4 major Southern California. Next slide, please. And since the pandemic, just like Pat, and maybe some of you, I've done a lot of speaking on various summits. That just happens to be one that I pulled in the upper left-hand corner. Typically, when people bring me in to speak somewhere, they want me to talk about business branding. And people have all types of cliches and monikers for me. Some people call me the brand master. Some people call me the branding evangelist. One guy the other day said, Gerry, you're brand master G, which I thought was pretty funny. I had never heard that one before. Next slide, please. And these are just some slides of some various stages that I'm on. I primarily speak at women's conferences. And you can look at a couple of these slides and you'll see a lot of women in the audiences. In fact, 98% of my, I'd say, 95% of my clients and students are females. And so I've spoken all across America, as well as in Canada. Next slide, please. And one of the things that's important to me are relationships. And I bond with my students. And these are just some photos of people who have gone through my programs, work with me privately. And I take my relationships very, very important in terms of making sure that anyone who works with me through a course gets exactly what they're looking for. Next slide, please. And these are just some photos that were taken at random after people have gone through some of my courses. And you can see, I love that one at the top, Pat, in the middle. We had a big celebration with wine. Lower right-hand corner was a client of mine that was taken in the pool up in Canada. Next to that was a women's mastermind group in Florida. The fellow to the left, bottom row, was taken in Vancouver, and on and on. Next slide, please. And these are just some more slides. And not only do I work primarily with women, but in this whole thing about relationships, I really cannot stress how much that means to me. And I work with a range of people. So you could see like on the top row, for the far left, they were so pleased with what we had done. We celebrated by drinking cognac. Okay, that's what that is. But I also work with people who perhaps have disabilities, lower left-hand corner. I've been asked over the years to work with people who have hardships. And I take those relationships very important. The one next to that, I work with people from all nationalities, different ethnicities. And then to the right, that young girl, her mom was one of my students. And I branded her mom, and then her mom took the branding lessons she learned from me and used them to market her daughter. And that little girl right there was the star, the co-star of a sitcom on ABC just 2 years ago. And so she went on from the teachings that I shared with her mom and got a TV show. Now, unfortunately, the TV show didn't last, but the fact that her mother launched a branding and marketing campaign for her little girl was special. And so they were here a couple of years ago before the pandemic. And her name is Ellie. And Ellie was so happy to meet me face to face. She just wanted to give me a big hug. Next slide, please. And again, relationships are very important to me. Upper left-hand corner, that is my marketing director and business partner who has been with me many, many years. And she's behind the scenes and makes sure that all of our clients and students are taken care of. To the right, that is my BFF, my best female friend. Her name is Joy. She's a scientist in the field of toxicology and environmental health. And she means the world to me as a friend. And on the lower row, some of you may recognize that fella. His name is Stedman. That's Oprah's boyfriend. And he is a good friend of mine. And I am his branding consultant. In fact, I have been helping Stedman with a project for the last 6 years where we're working with high schools in terms of helping our young people find their purpose, find their brand, find their identity. In fact, he and I were just on the phone last night talking about that. We had a meeting last night, and he and I meet every month for the last 6 years. So my friendship with him means a lot to me. Next slide, please. Now, just to kind of, Pat, I'm also doing this for Pat because Pat doesn't really know this part of me. I'm just a big kid, upper left. I'm just a big kid at heart. I was born and raised in Detroit. And in terms of personal hobbies, I love Motown music, lower left. I'm a dog and cat lover. I go to USC football games. Next slide, please. We'll go through these fast. And ladies, you might get a kick out of this. I don't cook. I don't know how to cook. So I took cooking lessons this year online. And Joyce, my best female friend, she bought me an air fryer. So I love my air fryer, ladies. So send me a chat, okay? Am I on the right path here? And I bought an Instapot. So I make some great chicken wings. I don't even know how to make chicken wings and a couple of other things in my air fryer. And I make a great cup of coffee. And so that's my coffee setup on the right. And then in the lower left-hand corner, I tried to do volunteer work where I can to help with homeless people. That's a picture of me working at a shelter in downtown Los Angeles. And as you know, when you go into these kitchens, they put you to work. And in terms of my hobbies, I love 80s and 90s movies. Those are the favorite movies. I think some of the best films were made in the 80s and 90s. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Next slide, please. And I showed Pat this before. She once made a comment about my office. I have these interior decorating skills. And so what you see here is the fact that my living space, everything you see here, this was all done by me, okay? And I think that, Pat, if I wasn't a branding consultant, I would be an interior decorator. And I'm into contemporary art. And so in my office, which are the center shots, you can see my desk. That photograph is my mom who passed away, but she's my angel. I have a picture behind me, what you see there as I sit here talking to you. I have her photo in front of me. She's my angel. She guides and protects me every moment of the day. All my family is deceased, so you know I don't have parents. My brothers, it's just me. Anyway, so I amuse myself. So I do interior decorating. So that's my living room and my space and blah, blah, blah. That's my entertainment center that I set up. Next slide, please. Okay. But here's the main thing I really wanted you to know. And Pat and I, when Pat and I first got connected, I shared with Pat, I said, you know what, Pat, I'm very spiritually driven and I'm a very faith-based person. And my company, while we've been around for 30 plus years, I think one of the reasons we've been successful is because we hold ourselves to a very strict personal code of ethics. And I think it's very important when you are looking at creating your brand that you decide on exactly what are going to be the standards that you live by. And I have a very simple philosophy. I don't have time for grumpy people. I'm very careful about who I work with. I like to laugh and have fun. And I love working with fellow heart-centered entrepreneurs who have the same spirit that I do, which is a spirit that is very faith-based. It's a spirit of gratitude, patience, giving, serving, faith, and joy. And so those are the values that I live by. And I think that one of the reasons why you saw those happy faces from all of those past clients and students, and a lot more than those, as well as Stedman, is because they know my heart. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're not here to talk about me. This is about you. And when Pat approached me with the idea of doing this webinar, I said, absolutely. So let's talk about each of you. So send me a response in the chat. Am I doing okay? You guys enjoying this? Yes. Pat knows I'm a little insecure. I have to have love. I'm gonna look in the Pat box. How am I doing, everybody? Yes. Okay, Rose, okay, yes. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, all right. So let's focus on you, okay? Now, here's the deal. I want you to imagine what would it feel like if you could make a nice living, not only doing the work you love, but also having the sense of fulfillment that it's going to bring you because of the difference you're making. Next slide. I want you to also imagine what would it feel like to live your best life as an LNC, truly making the difference that you are here to make, living at the highest, best version of yourself. Next slide. Because, and one of you said it best when Pat was asking you, what does branding mean to you? And one of you talked about setting yourself apart. And whoever said that, you hit the nail on the head. If you can simply set yourself apart and give attorneys a compelling reason to choose you, look at what's in gold. You can grow a profitable LNC business in 2022 without stress, risk, or overwhelm, even if nobody knows who you are. Is that of interest to any of you? So I'm going to be sharing with you those secrets that I referred to. Because if you can do these 3 simple things that I am going to share with you, it will make all of the difference in the world. Not only in terms of having the kind of impact and personal fulfillment you're looking for and making the kind of money perhaps that you want to make, but more importantly, knowing that you are doing the kind of work that is going to be honored and respected by these attorneys. Next slide, please. So secret number 1. This is about you exciting and delighting and igniting attorneys. The first secret is to excite them by setting yourself apart. In my prep work for this webinar and in my discussions with Pat, I was surprised, and I even did some Google research. I was absolutely surprised and stunned at how so many legal nurse consultants do not differentiate themselves other than their field of expertise. Next slide, please. And the first key to being successful, more successful, scaling starting next year, is to be different. Because being different makes money. Next slide, please. And the fact of the matter is that you have to understand that potential clients failing to see you as being unique and distinctly beneficial is the missing, or what I call the most defective element in any service-based business. Stay on the slide for a second, don't move your jet pad. And I'll share a personal story with you. And when I think back to my early years, I remember leaving corporate America and being excited and delighted in the idea of owning my own business. Oh my God, that just thrilled me. In my dreams, I saw myself as what people now call a thought leader. I saw people see me as this expert, this authority on this thing called branding, because after all, I had just come from 10 years in corporate America in branding. You know, I carved my branding teeth at Procter & Gamble, the #1 branding company on the planet. They wrote the book on branding. I was a USC grad, blah, 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 blah. And so I wanted people to see me as this credible, reliable, expert, industry leader, authority, whatever word you want to use. And in my mind, I felt that, okay, if I have all of this expertise, 10 years of experience, and I have this great resume, I have the pedigree, I have the credentials. I said, I'm going to present myself as a brand strategist, which, by the way, is what I am, which in my mind, if I started my business and I called myself a brand strategy, that seemed quite logical because it sounded very professional. And so I started this company, Gerry Foster, brand strategist. I thought it would resonate with people. However, what I learned is that it didn't, you write this down for yourself, it didn't uniquely position me. I wasn't presenting myself as being special. I wasn't presenting myself as being distinct. And then I started calling myself a branding coach, and that didn't work. And then I started calling myself a brand consultant, and that didn't work. And then on top of that, Pat, I had to face the awful truth. The awful truth was, and this was after years of being in business for myself. I'm in like year 7 or something. I had to face the awful truth, which was, while I was great at branding other people, I sucked when it came to branding myself. I was lousy at it. And then if I tried marketing myself, that was not working as well. And so unknowingly, I had not found a way to be unique. I didn't make it easy for my market to discern what was special and different about me. Instead, I made it simple for business owners to pass me by or to get me to work for substandard fees because I wasn't separating myself from other people who were in the branding industry. And so I'm wondering how many of you think like that right now? Okay, put it in the chat box, please. Pat and I want to know, because if you go down the path that I went down, which is I've got the resume, I've got the experience, blah, blah, blah. If I call myself what I am, a consultant, a coach is what I used to also call myself, a strategist, then that sounds professional, that's logical, everybody should want to work with me. And the reality is that that wasn't true. And I had to then make the shift to put my time and energy into following these 3 steps that I'm presenting to you today. Because when I discovered these 3 secrets and I applied them, my business skyrocketed. Next slide, please. Now, the bottom line is that uniqueness is upside leverage. Now, I want you to think about attorneys for a moment. Attorneys are bombarded with similar offerings when it comes to use of any outside resource. One of my best friends is an attorney. He's a big time PI attorney, personal injury, here in Los Angeles. And I had a conversation with him once about the use of expert witnesses and outside resources, because you guys know this. All they want to do is win a case, get the settlement, get their percentage, and And he said to me, he said, we are just bombarded with nurse consultants, this person and that person. And he said, what mattered to him where he placed his greatest value was on uniqueness. He wanted to see someone who was saying the right things the right way to him as an attorney. Next slide, please. So my question to each of you, and please be honest here, are you currently truly differentiating yourself? I mean, think about it. And please speak your truth on this. Put it in the chat box, please. And we'll have a Q&A at the end. Are you truly separating yourself? Next slide, please. And as an LNC, be you a nurse practitioner, medical surgical nurse, etc., my next question is, how can you best differentiate yourself? Through your clinical background and experience. Now, again, I'm going to use myself as an example. I had an incredible corporate branding background. I had the expertise, I had the experience, I had the pedigree. I mean, my God, I went to USC. And so it could be that you are 3 feet from gold. Each of you on this call, this webinar, you may be 1 point of difference away from total incredible success. It could be that one small shift in how you see yourself and present yourself can make all the difference in the world. Next slide, please. Now, going back to my story before I get into this slide, which has to do with delighting attorneys, being meaningful, being appealing. This is all about, in the branding world, called purchase motivation. Write those words down, please. Purchase motivation, which now is called client engagement. So basically, and Pat, by the way, is an expert on this topic. She doesn't know this, but she is. When it comes to engaging people in your company, in yourself, you have to do what? You have to be meaningful and appealing to them. That's how you put a smile on the face of an attorney. So going back to my story, when I started, I was feeling the same as some of you. I wanted people to see me as the quote unquote go-to expert. Just like some of you, you want attorneys to see you as the go-to expert, right? I wanted them to see me the same way. Because in my heart and soul, I still had the ambition to be seen as the go-to person and not just another branding option. I wanted people to see me as the authority that these business owners should pay attention to, which is critical if you're trying to stand out in a crowded market. And the breakthrough happened for me. Please hear me on this. My whole journey changed when I made the decision that I was not going to be labeled generic. I was not going to allow people to commoditize my expertise, which simply meant looking and sounding like any other branding expert, promoting the same kind of stuff, the same kind of offerings, very similar resumes and biographies, very similar backgrounds and experience. Simply stated, I made it a point that I was not going to be just another penguin in the group. I was not going to allow people to see me as just another slice in the loaf, another sheep in the herd, putting me in this box called branding expert. And at that point, I had to trust this new journey. And I said to myself, okay, Gerry, you got to keep going and keep going when no doors were opening, and believe in my gut that if I were to chart my own path, if I could chart my own path and create success on my terms and control how people perceive me, I could change the trajectory of my company. And I had to, Pat, I had to make a conscious decision to do that, because the reality was they were pigeonholing me. They were basically saying, you're just another branding guy. You're just another branding expert. Next slide, please. So I say all this to say that being relevant makes you client-centric, because in branding, you have to be as relatable and believable and resonating as possible. And what people look for who want to work with folks like you and I, quote unquote experts, authorities, okay? They want to make sure that we are dialed into what matters most to them. Next slide, please. Now, I want to illustrate this concept because when you have a brand, you have to understand that the consumer is in charge. That unless we shape how they perceive us, things will probably not go the way we want them to go, okay? So to illustrate this concept of reliability, let's take something we can all relate to, soap. Read what it says. Have dry skin? If you're using a normal soap bar, stop. Soap dries out the skin, but Dove, oh, brand name, Dove is different. Dove is not a soap. It's a beauty bar. Whoa. It contains our famous 1/4 moisturizing cream, so it helps to hydrate your skin as it cleanses. No more leaving the bathroom with that tight post-wash feeling. Next slide. Now, just from what I just read to you, which is something that I grabbed about how Dove presents itself as a brand and not a bar of soap, here's what they've done. The first decision they made strategically, branding wise, was that they're not going to compete in the traditional way. They're not going to focus on their packaging or their logo. In other words, they're not going to just focus on their aesthetics. So branding is more than a logo. A brand is more than what people see. No one's going to hire any of us just because of our pretty colors or our logos or how we look in Zoom or sound in Clubhouse. Those are popular today. Or our use of photography and graphic images and all the bells and whistles. So Dove made the decision that they were not going to present themselves by focusing on how they look in terms of their logo and their packaging. Number two, they use a typical soap bar's characteristics against it, okay? If you're not, if you're using a normal soap bar, stop. Soap dries out the skin. Whoa, Pat, I wonder what that could open up for a legal nurse consultant. If you're working with just an ordinary, typical legal nurse consultant, stop. You know, I don't know. Next slide, please. Then they describe their brand a certain way. We're the gateway to beautiful skin. We're the best kept secret that the whole family could enjoy. Undeniably satisfying to use, an indulgent treat that gives you multiple little moments of care throughout the day. Write this down, everyone. Speak to the emotions that attorneys have. Okay, I don't want to hear any attorney jokes right now. They have feelings, they do, okay? And what you want to do is speak to their most urgent needs or their greatest desires. And speak about the experience, because a brand is an experience. Speak about how they're going to feel with you on their team, okay? Because experience is what separates you from everybody else. There's a famous story of Walt Disney when he took his wife to an amusement park in the 50s, and they're sitting on a bench, and he turns to his wife and he says, I'm going to open up my own amusement park one day. And his wife says, why would you want to do that? They're dirty, they're loud, and the employees are horrible. They're rude. And Walt Disney says, I know, my park won't be like that. Called it Disneyland, okay? Look at the next. Dove, they depict a sumptuous experience that far surpasses the, is it banal, banal? I don't even went to USC. Unassuming method of cleansing that's been around since 2800 BC. Whoa, it could be, Pat, and the rest of you, maybe some of these attorneys are utilizing old school prehistoric methods to winning some of these cases. What's the opportunity for some of you? What word do you want to use to describe the experience you provide an attorney? Said another way, come up with another word besides sumptuous. Could it be amazing, fabulous, superior, comprehensive? I mean, think of what word would you want to use to describe how an attorney will feel with you on their team. Next slide, please. Instead of trying to compete, they differentiate. Whoa! There's an old expression in branding. Don't compare, differentiate, set yourself apart. And even in 2019, it was named the best bar soap you can buy because of all this branding and the fact that the product delivered. And then next, like any great best brand, they make their customer feel something. The customer becomes attached to the brand because it mirrors their values. They stand for something they believe in. And through a powerful act of selection, they intentionally communicate those parts of the customer to others. I don't use soap. We'll say, I use Dove's Beauty Bar. Are you with me? Let me know in the chat box, okay? So when you're thinking about all of this, learn from this example. Dove understands that if you can't clearly point out what makes your brand different, I shouldn't say Dove, the customer understands that if you can't clearly point what makes your brand different, how will anyone else? You should never leave anybody wondering, so what? It should leave them thinking, of course. So if someone, for example, gets your resume, get your biography, maybe sees how you present yourself, in a website, maybe how you write reports, whatever, if it sounds very similar to someone else, they're going to go, so what? Everybody does this. You want to leave them thinking, of course. Okay. And so for me, I said, I'm going to differentiate myself from others in the branding field. I'm going to concentrate on delivering a standout customer experience. I'm going to focus on making positive, lasting impressions on the market I serve. And the way I did this, write this down, is I leaned on one word, and that word is called focus. In branding, having a strong focus is good, because you must get across to your audience how you are different, why you are the best, if you want a market leading presence. And so in my case, and this may be true for some of you, I rooted my brand in the one thing that I excelled at doing, that only I could easily provide. Said another way, I uniquely define what's called my me onlyness. And so instead of providing services, I told people I have a secret sauce. I created a unique delivery system called the Big Brand Formula. This became my innovative me only signature delivery signal system. In other words, I wanted to send a signal flare to let my market know that a different kind of branding person providing unique value had arrived. And to this day, it is the core differentiator that sets me apart. Because remember, I was a great brander, but I couldn't brand myself. I could brand everybody else except myself. So creating my secret sauce was the best decision I ever made. And by having my own method, I stopped being overwhelmed about nailing down my value and how best to convey it. Next slide, please. Okay. So what is that one thing that's going to make you relevant? Next slide, please. Because if you get this right, it'll make everything else easier or even unnecessary. Next slide. And it's what's going to move you and get you on that path that Pat is so devoted to each of you. You have no idea, because she wants you to be seen, each of you, as the solution, not a solution, the solution to any problems that attorneys are facing. Because unless you do that, if they don't see you as the solution, then you'll just keep getting peanuts. Next slide, please. And when you are relevant, you know the value of your brand, you're willing to distinguish yourself, you realize and know that you've paid your dues, you've made plenty of sacrifices. However, you've now decided it's your turn to thrive and your time to do what? Make a difference. And the last secret is to ignite attorneys, which simply means that you have to wow them. Okay, you have to wow them with the right message. In other words, saying the right things the right way to the right people. Next slide, please. And when you do that, then you're in that best position to say what it is that you want to say. So messaging is everything when it comes to the end. Next slide, please. So use your voice. And the way that I look at this, this is one of my most popular quotes. A brand message is that sweet harmony of the right words, the sentences and catchphrases to make a heart, not just a head connection that helps highlight, illustrate, and elevate the special advantages that your brand offers. Next slide. Because it's all about you. Your website, your marketing one sheet, if you've got brochures and cover letters, all of this has to be written with the right set of words that make a, write this down, that make a heart connection, not just a head connection. Next slide, please. So the question to each of you, just to kind of wrap this up, and then we'll do a Q&A. Next slide, please. The question to each of you is, would you like me to teach you exactly how to create a successful brand in 3 steps? Because that's why Pat has brought me in, to help you do that. Next slide, please. And the reason why you're here today is could be a wide range of things. And it could be that you just want to stop having certain things showing up in your life. Okay. And Pat and I know how busy you are, and we appreciate you being here. Next slide here. Next slide, please. But maybe for some of you, you're tired of feeling frustrated with this feast or famine roller coaster ride. Next slide. Maybe some of you are tired of feeling confused and constantly wondering, what is the best way to go? I mean, let's be real here. There are coaches out there, experts, gurus who tell you to do this, do that now, and you're not really sure what to do. You're not sure what makes the most sense. Next slide, please. Or maybe some of you feel skeptical because here is Pat and she invites this guy named Gerry Foster and they go, oh my God, here's somebody else who can tell me I can make more clients, get more clients, make more money. And you're saying, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, the coffee mug and the DVD, didn't work, and you got burned. And so you're skeptical. Next slide. Or maybe some of you feel a little afraid right now because you look at your life, you look at where you are, and you feel like you should have made more progress by now, but you've made some bad choices and decisions in the past. Yet you're ready though to get to the success you deserve for you and your family's future. And that's okay. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to feel afraid. Next slide, please. So Pat and I basically, just to wrap this up, feel you have two options. One option is you don't move forward on living your dreams as a successful LNC. You just keep doing what you've been doing. Or the second option, which is you 100% commit to creating your personal brand and living your best life in 2022 by making sure you have the strongest brand possible going into the new year. Next slide. And for those of you who say yes to option number 2, you really want to move forward and get your business to the level that you deserve. Next slide, please. If that's you, what Pat and I would like to do is just muscle test where you are right now. I've created an online assessment that would take you only 3 to 5 minutes to complete, where you can answer 25 questions on a scale of 1 to 10. You're rating yourself. You can see what the missing pieces may be. You're going to receive a report of findings in terms of where you need to amp up. And then you and I are going to have a 1-hour brainstorming session that usually is $1,000 just itself. The assessment is $500, but we're going to do that for free. Pat and I, next slide, please. And so if you would like to muscle test your brand and speak your truth and share where you are right now, then Pat and I graciously request that you send Pat a text. So for those of you who would like to just take a look at where you are and have a conversation, that's Pat's cell phone. Just type your name and the word LNC, and then I'll follow up, get you set up to complete the assessment, schedule your brainstorming session, and then we can go from there. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, Pat. You can leave that slide up. Yeah. Oh, you can. Okay.
Sure. Good point. I know that we had some comments in the chat, Gerry.
And I don't even know how to appear on camera, so I know maybe some of them would like to see me. I know. I don't even know how to get on camera. This is weird.
Rose has said that she's with you. She wants to be an attorney's dream come true.
Awesome. All right, Rose. I like that. I want to become an attorney's dream come true. Excellent.
And Kenyetta said you want the attorney to have a Publix or a Chick-fil-A experience with you, not the Walmart or McDonald's experience.
Oh, you know what I used to also say on that one? Make sure it's not a DMV experience. Oh, that's good.
Rose also said, I know I'm highly skilled and competent, but how how to get into the spotlight is eluding me. I
Yes,
need to learn how to speak the attorney's language.
good point. And the key though is the way you get yourself into the spotlight is by giving your target audience a reason to put you into the spotlight, which are those 3 secrets that I shared.
Tina said you have to know your values.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why I shared earlier about my values, because your values have to mesh with the values of your audience, the people you're serving. It's all about how you lead and give and deliver. Lead, serve, and deliver.
Jacqueline is asking, just to clarify, the assessment is free, but the 1-hour brainstorming session costs money?
No, everything is free.
That's a nice 4-letter word, Gerry.
No, everything is free. There's no charge for the assessment nor the brainstorming session. We're waiving all of that. Yes.
All right. So,
And it's not a sales pitch either, by the way. So I'm not going to get you on a call with me and pitch you something. I don't do that. I have a very high set of standards and ethics that I live by. This is all about you. And I think for some of you in this brand conscious world right now, you really, really need to look at where you're strong, where you're weak, what the missing pieces may be that could be hurting or hindering your success. You know, there's an old adage, right? You don't know what you don't know, but let me say this. When it comes to branding, not only do you not know what you don't know, the worst thing to do is to act like you do know what you don't know, or what you don't know is not that important. So don't mess around with this one, everybody. Because just like my multi-millionaire PI attorney friend put it, they're looking for people like you, but you have to say what matters to them. You have to present yourself a certain way. You don't just send them a resume and a cover letter. And we also build your secret sauce around those areas of your expertise where you excel the most. Like Pat, I think you were saying for you it's how you write reports. Can you talk about that? I think you said that's one of your strengths.
well, one of my strengths is having strong writing skills and getting feedback from the clients who got my reports and finding out what made it easy for them to understand the details of the case and how they wanted me to change my format or expand the information. It's trial and error and being open to feedback and being as strong as possible in your skill set.
Nice, nice.
And I see a question from Rose, and I'm not sure if I'm interpreting it correctly, but could you again go through what the offer is that you are making for our participants?
The offer would be to muscle test your brand, which is the first point there, which will consist first of you completing an online assessment tool that I created about 7 years ago that, oh my God, so many people thanked me for this, where you are basically, if you go to the point number 3, you are answering 25 questions on a rating scale, 1 to 10, of how you were doing in these 25 critical branding areas. And then you're going to receive a report of findings. You'll know where you need to amp up. And once you receive that report, and I have the report as well, we're going to jump on a Zoom call together for 1 hour and brainstorm with your numbers, your data in front of us, so we have a point of reference. Normally that's $1,500, but it's totally free for all of you. Did that answer it? Did that clarify it, Rose? Hopefully, yes.
And the way that you get that set up is to send me a text message to my cell phone with your name and LNC. The number is 908-391-7933. And then I'll pass that information on to Gerry, and he will give you a link to his calendar so that you can set up that appointment. Looks like it's satisfied what Rose was asking about, Gerry.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right, other questions, comments in the chat? At the end of this program, I hope that you have been inspired. You have gotten some concrete outlines from Gerry in terms of what are the things that enable you to find out how to set yourself apart. He shared with you some secrets of branding and also some perspectives of what attorneys are looking for in working with a legal nurse consultant. Jacqueline says, thank you for offering this wonderful webinar, Gerry.
Oh, thank you, Jacqueline. And I would love to connect with you, all of you, see you face to face. I wonder if we take the slides down, can they see me? I wonder, I don't know.
I don't know, but let me see if there's a way that I can get.
Any of you want to see me?
Well, I feel like they know what you look like, Gerry, because we did see several pictures of you. No, it doesn't look like I can take your camera off of its turned off state. And we appreciate your patience as we got this program going and look forward to having you have an opportunity to go deeper with Gerry.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and when we have the brainstorming session, we'll kick around some ideas. You may want to have me critique something. You may want my eyes on your website or a marketing piece or whatever. You may want to run something past me in terms of if I say this, if I should say that. This is your brainstorming session, okay? And I cannot emphasize it's all about your brand today. And you have to get past simply telling people how good you are, because I made the assumption that you were very good at what it is that you do. But the key to success in life is not how good you are at what you do. Success is a function of how good you are at branding, marketing, and selling what you are good so that people pay you to do what you're good at doing, okay? Everyone understand that? And you know, Pat, I did a podcast interview a few weeks ago and someone asked me the question, what's the biggest shift in branding over the last 30 years? And I said, you got to go pre-internet and then post-internet. I said, think about it. Before the internet, you could rely upon referrals, word of mouth, because your competition was only within a 3 to 5 mile radius. Today, because of the internet, it's changed everything. Your competition is global. So you've got to do everything you can to separate yourself from the rest of the pack and give people a reason to choose you over other options. That's your brand. That's not marketing. The job of marketing, the job of branding is to get you known. The job of marketing is to get you found, and selling will get you paid. The three work together. So to not focus on your brand and instead think, well, maybe I should do promotions or maybe I should do this, that. No. Make sure you give yourself an identity. And that's what Pat and I want to make sure happens. Uncover your voice and use your distinct voice to change the world, make impact. So that's what I want to have a brainstorming session around. Woo, I'm getting excited.
All right. Please be sure to take advantage of this opportunity to connect with Gerry to get a fresh look at your brand. You sign up for that by going to my cell phone text message capability of 908-391-7933. And then Gerry will be in touch with you to set up your session. Thanks so much for your attention. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat that we need to address. And I see some people who are already texting and commenting. The cell phone number, Shalonda, is 908-391-7933. And that's where you text your request for the brainstorming session with Gerry after you complete your brand assessment. And there is no fee associated with completing that assessment and having an hour of Gerry's time. Okay,
right.
looks like we have
Woohoo.
answered everybody's questions. Thanks so much for participating and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.